She'd stopped trying to look brave hours ago. Now she was just trying to stay conscious. Every time her eyes blinked, the world went dark for a second, and she feared it would stay that way. Her throat felt like sandpaper, and her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. She dragged one knee forward, then the other, not because she believed she would make it, but because stopping meant dying. Pain wasn't even the worst part anymore. The worst part was the shame that clung to her, like dust that would never wash off. She had begged once. It didn't help. She had fought once. It didn't matter. So now she did the only thing she had left. She crawled toward the only place where someone would have to see her. She crawled the last 10 feet on her knees, fingers bleeding into the dirt, before collapsing at the wooden fence like a body already given up by the land. The sun burned overhead, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and steals breath from lungs. The girl lay on her side, dress torn and stiff with dust, lips cracked, eyes half open like she was afraid to close them and never wake again. One boot was missing, her ankle was swollen, her chest rose and shallow. Uneven pulls like each breath had to be negotiated. No one had chased her. That was the part that scared her most because it meant they were certain she wouldn't make it. That told her everything she needed to know. No shouting behind her, no footsteps, just silence, which meant whoever heard her had finished. She wasn't just running. She was trying to choose a place where someone would have to stop. Even half dead, she aimed her body like a signal, right where no one could pretend they didn't see. When Clay Mercer saw her from the porch of his ranch house, he didn't move at first. 53 years on hard land teaches a man caution. People didn't just fall at your fence in New Mexico, not unless someone wanted them found. He stepped down slowly, hat low, boots heavy against the dry ground. The girl flinched when his shadow crossed her face. Her hand came up, weak and shaking. "Don't do that," she whispered. Her voice was raw. Not fear alone, something deeper, the kind that comes from learning too late, that pleading never saved you. Clay crouched a few feet away, careful, palms open. He saw the signs right away. Dehydration, shock, old bruises beneath newer ones, marks that didn't belong to a fall. "I'm not touching you," he said quietly. "I'm checking if you're alive," she swallowed, throat working hard. Her eyes flicked to his hands, then to the sky, then back again. Like she was measuring how much pain she had left to survive. Clay reached for his canteen and held it out. Slow enough she could refuse, she hesitated, then drank like someone who hadn't tasted water in days. It spilled down her chin. She didn't care. That was when he noticed the way she guarded her shoulder, the way her fingers trembled when he leaned in to look at a wound. She sucked in a sharp breath and whispered it again. "Don't do that." He paused, not because she told him to, because something in her tone sounded like a line drawn in blood. "I have to see how bad it is," he said. "That's all. I'll use the cloth, not my hands. You say stop, I stop." For her, it sounded like a rule the world had never given her. She nodded once. Not trust, permission. Clay finished the check, jaw tightening with every second. She had walked miles on a twisted ankle. She had pushed through pain that would have dropped a grown man, and whatever sent her running hadn't cared whether she lived or died. He stood and looked toward the road. Anyone passing would see this, a rancher on his knees, a young woman broken in the dirt. In towns like this, people didn't ask why. They decided who to blame. Clay went to the wagon and brought it closer. He didn't lift her, didn't carry her like a prize. He braced her, steady and firm, helped her onto the wooden seat, then turned the wagon toward the tack room beside the barn. From the road, it looked like exactly what gossip needed. He dug the tack room key from his pocket, the same one he used every winter, and set it in her palm like it was a promise he couldn't take back. By the time he closed the door behind her, someone was already running back toward town, and the version they carried wouldn't include the truth only a target. If you're still here listening right now, this is the kind of moment that defines a story, the choice made before applause or punishment. If you want more true Western stories like this, stories about hard land and harder decisions, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And tell us in the comments what kind of frontier tales you want to hear, because we read them and we build these stories for you. Clay didn't rush to town, and he didn't rush to heroics either. He did what ranchers do when the world gets strange.
Stay with me right here. If this moment has you holding your breath, tap like and subscribe and tell me, was that the only choice he had?
He checked what could be checked. He walked the fence line and found 2 posts leaning, old scars from last week's wind. He tightened a loose strand of wire with a pair of pliers, the metal singing under his grip. He topped off the trough, watched the water settle, and listened for anything that didn't belong. One of the geldings kept shifting, hooves grinding the dirt like it couldn't find a comfortable place to stand. The blue heeler paced the yard once, twice, then stopped. Ears up, staring down the road without blinking. Clay didn't like that. He glanced back at the tack room door, then at the empty stretch of dirt beyond his gate. A man could keep his head straight if he kept his hands busy, but the land wasn't lying today. It felt watched, and whatever had happened to that girl, it hadn't ended. Inside the tack room, the girl sat on a bale of hay, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the floor. Outside, Clay checked the water troughs and the pump handle like he always did. A ranch lives or dies on water, and today, water felt like the least of his problems. She looked impossibly young up close, 24 maybe, too young to carry that kind of fear. "What's your name?" Clay asked. She hesitated, then spoke it like it might cost her something. "Rose." He nodded. "Rose, you're safe here." For tonight, outside, the wind shifted, dust moved across the yard, and far down the road, the story was already changing shape. By sundown, the town would say the rancher did something unforgivable. By morning, they would come to his gate. It wasn't about Clay standing his ground, say. It was about whether saving one broken girl was worth turning an entire town against him. The door of the tack room closed with a soft click, and the sound felt louder than it should have. Rose sat on the hay bale, hands folded tight in her lap, eyes fixed on the dirt floor like it might give her instructions. The room smelled of leather and dust and old sweat. A working place, not a hiding place. But right now, it was the safest room she'd seen in a long time. Clay stood outside for a moment, listening. No sobbing, no panic, just quiet. He had learned over the years that silence could mean 2 things: peace or damage too deep to make noise. He went back to the house, filled a bowl with warm water, grabbed clean cloths, then hesitated at the door. People talked. People always talked. But there were rules he lived by, and one of them was simple. If someone collapsed on your land, you didn't ask questions first. You made sure they lived long enough to answer them later. When he came back, Rose looked up, startled. Her eyes followed the bowl like it might disappear. "You can clean up if you want," he said. "No rush." She nodded, then finally spoke again. "Thank you." 2 words, spoken like they had weight. Clay leaned against the post, arms crossed, giving her space. "You got family nearby?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." A pause, then, quieter. "Not anymore." He didn't push. Men who push too hard don't get answers. They get walls. Outside, a wagon rattled past on the road. Then another. Clay caught a glimpse of a boy riding hard toward town, dust kicking up behind him. He knew that look. Fast legs, busy mouth. By the time Rose finished cleaning her hands, the story had already left the ranch. In town, it grew teeth. Old Mrs. Doe Pruitt at the store leaned across the counter and whispered, "Mercer brought a young girl into his barn." Someone else added. She looked half dead. Another voice laughed. That old man finally lost his sense. By sundown, the story had shape. By dark, it had judgment. By dark, the same story was on every porch, each retelling leaving out one more piece of truth. Back at the ranch, Clay lit the lantern and brought Rose a bowl of soup. She ate slow, like her stomach didn't trust it yet. "You don't owe me anything," he said, watching the flame flicker. "This is just a place to rest." Her spoon paused midair. People didn't say that to her. Not without meaning something else. "You always help strangers?" she asked. He shrugged. "Not always." That answer made her look at him longer. "I'll leave in the morning," she said quickly. like she was afraid he might take the option away. I don't want trouble. She said it quick, like the
Right now, everything hangs on this moment. Subscribe if you're locked into this story and leave a comment. Would you have done the same?
words could keep her from getting hit. Clay smiled a little. Not warm, not cold, just tired. Trouble doesn't ask permission, he said, and it doesn't wait till morning. She frowned. What do you mean? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed her a small key. Lock the door, he said. Only you keep that. Her fingers closed around it. A key. Something that belonged to her. That mattered more than the soup. Her thumb rubbed the edge of the key like it was a coin she didn't deserve. People gave her things before, but there was always a price hiding behind the gift. A smile that meant, take it and be grateful. A hand that lingered too long. A look that said, you owe me. Clay didn't do any of that. He gave her the key. Then he stepped back, like he was handing her something more important than metal, a boundary, a choice. Rose's shoulders loosened, just a little, the way they do when the body finally believes the room might stay quiet. She still didn't trust the world, but for the first time in a long time, she trusted one small thing, that this man understood the word no. As the night settled in, voices drifted from far down the road. Laughter, boots, the sound of men who had already decided they were right. Rose stiffened. Her shoulders tightened like a storm warning. They followed me, she whispered. I told you I'd leave. Clay stepped between her and the door without thinking. Not touching, just there. No one's taking you tonight, he said. Outside the ranch, a man spat in the dirt and laughed. Old Mercer thinks he owns the road now. Clay recognized that voice. Wade Griggs. Clay didn't worry about Wade talking. He worried about who'd nod along. A man he had fired years back for light hands and heavy lies. Wade liked chaos. He always had. Clay rested his hand on the door frame. Steady. He didn't reach for a weapon. Not yet. Inside, Rose realized something she hadn't expected. The fear was still there. But for the first time, it wasn't alone. She looked at Clay and saw what the town would never say out loud, a man who had nothing to gain by helping her, and everything to lose outside. Wade's laughter faded, replaced by a low promise carried on the wind. This ain't over. Clay closed the door, slow and calm, then turned back to Rose. They'll be back, he said, and next time, they won't come just to talk. Rose swallowed hard, gripping the key in her palm. So what happens now? She asked. Clay met her eyes. Now, he said, the whole town finds out what I'm willing to stand for, and that leaves one question hanging in the dark. Because by sunrise, men would be leaning on that fence like it was the rail outside a saloon waiting for a show. When the town comes to his gate at sunrise, will Clay Mercer back down, or will someone get hurt trying to make him? Dawn came thin and gray, like it wasn't sure it wanted to show up. Clay was already awake. He had been that way since the voices faded in the dark. A man who has lived 53 years learns the sound of trouble before it knocks. Rose slept on the narrow cot in the tack room, curled tight, one hand wrapped around the key like it might vanish. She did not dream. She waited. Clay stepped onto this porch and looked down the road. Dust lay flat. Too flat. That was the first sign. By mid-morning, the town arrived without asking. They came in pairs at first, men pretending they were just riding by. Then wagons stopped a little too close to the fence. By noon, there were 8 of them. Wade Griggs stood at the front like he owned the place. Hat low, smile lazy, confidence borrowed from numbers. Clay walked out slow, boots steady on the dirt. He didn't carry a rifle. That alone made some of the men uneasy. Morning, Clay said. Wade laughed. Funny thing. He said, we heard shouting last night. Clay nodded. Wind carries sound. Another man chimed in. Wind don't cry like that. Silence stretched. Clay didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. There's a woman resting here, he said. She's not bothering anyone. Wade stepped closer, crossing an invisible line. That's not how the town sees it. Clay tilted his head. Town doesn't own my porch. That drew a few chuckles. Not from Wade. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Wade said. She came from trouble.
Don't look away. If you felt that silence, hit like and subscribe and tell me, who do you trust after this?
Trouble follows, Clay smiled then. Not friendly. Funny thing about trouble, he said. It always shows up with friends. Wade's eyes narrowed. From the tack room, Rose heard everything. Each word hit like a knock on a door she couldn't lock from the inside. She stood, heart pounding, then froze. She knew this pattern. Men talk, then men decide. She opened the door, just enough to see. Clay was alone out there. 8 men, all eyes on him. Her chest tightened. She stepped forward. Don't, Clay said quietly, without turning. Too late. Rose stood beside him, shoulders back, eyes tired but sharp. The sight of her changed the air. Some men looked away, others leaned in. Wade grinned wide. There she is. Rose spoke before fear could stop her. I'm leaving. Clay turned, surprised. No, I don't want you hurt, she said. Wade laughed again. That's real sweet. Clay faced Wade now, voice firm. She stays. A man behind Wade muttered something crude. Another laughed. That was the second sign. The first punch came fast. Wade didn't throw it. A man on his left did, lunging forward, aiming for Clay's jaw. Clay moved like a man who had done this before. He shifted, took the hit on the shoulder, and drove his fist into the man's ribs. Hard, close, personal. The man folded with a sound like air leaving a tire. Everything exploded after that. A second man rushed. Clay grabbed his collar, slammed him into the fence, wood cracking. Someone shouted. Someone else swung wild. Rose backed away, breath shallow. But she didn't run. She watched Clay move, not angry, controlled. Wade finally stepped in, pulling a knife halfway free. That changed the rules. A few men took one step back. Even drunks know what a knife means. Clay stopped moving. So this is how you want it, Clay said. Wade sneered. You're done protecting strays. Clay stepped forward. He's locked. She's not a stray. The knife flashed. Clay caught Wade's wrist. Something tore in Clay's side when he twisted. It felt like a hot nail under his ribs. He didn't let his face show it, but his breath got shorter. And Rose noticed. Pain shot through his arm, but he didn't let go. He twisted hard. The knife hit the dirt. Silence snapped back into place. Clay shoved Wade back, not hitting him again. Didn't need to. You come back, Clay said, breathing hard. And you won't walk away. Wade stared at him, chest heaving, pride bleeding out of his eyes. This town won't forget, Wade said. Clay nodded. When he turned away, his left hand pressed his ribs for half a second. Not dramatic, just a man checking if he was still in one piece. I'm counting on it. The men backed off, dragging the injured with them. Dust rose as they left, not fast, but not slow either. When it was over, Rose realized she was shaking. Clay turned to her. You all right? He asked. She nodded, then surprised herself by laughing once, short, almost hysterical. I've never seen anyone fight like that, she said. Clay shrugged. Age teaches efficiency. She looked at his bruised knuckles, the blood starting to show. You shouldn't have done that, she said softly. He met her eyes. Someone had to. They went inside as the sun dipped lower. The ranch felt smaller now, exposed. Clay cleaned his hands at the sink. Rose hovered, unsure. I should still go, she said. Clay dried his hands, turned. If you leave now, they win. She looked down. That's what they always say. Clay leaned against the counter. Rose, he said, saying her name slow. I'm not them. She believed him. That scared her more than disbelief ever had. Outside, a bell rang in town. One long pull. Clay stiffened. That's not for church, he said. Rose swallowed. What is it for? He looked toward the road. It's a meeting bell. Clay had heard that bell for weddings and funerals. He'd heard it when a barn caught fire and when a child went missing. But this ring was different. It wasn't calling folks to help. It was calling them to judge. Rose felt it in her stomach. The old reflex to disappear, to get small, to make herself less visible. She looked at the tack room like it was a hole in the ground.
This is where things turn deadly. Stay with the channel, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments, whose side are you on right now?
Clay saw it and didn't scold her. He just spoke like a man naming the weather. They're going to come smiling, he said, and they'll act polite. Right up until they don't. Rose swallowed. What do I do? Clay took a slow breath. Ribs tight. Voice steady anyway. You stand where you can breathe, he said. And you tell the truth once. After that, it's on them. And this time, it wasn't 8 men coming. It was the whole town. The meeting bell kept ringing. Clay's ribs still burned from yesterday. Every breath reminded him that winning a fight doesn't mean you walk away clean. Longer this time. Clay and Rose stepped out together. Not side by side, not touching. But close enough that everyone could see they were not apart. The town gathered slow, men first, then women. Then the ones who liked to watch trouble without choosing a side. Some leaned on post, some crossed their arms, some looked embarrassed just to be there. Clay stood still on his porch, hands empty, shoulders loose. A man who had decided something already. Rose stayed half a step behind him, not hiding, just learning where to stand. Wade Griggs pushed through the crowd, face still swollen, pride not healed at all. She doesn't belong here, Wade said. Loud enough for everyone, a murmur rolled through the group. Clay waited for it to settle. She belongs where she chooses, Clay said. This is my land. A woman near the back spoke up. She screamed last night. Rose flinched. Just a little. Clay didn't. So would you, Clay said, calm, if the world kept taking without asking. That quieted things. An older man cleared his throat. The kind who had buried a wife and didn't talk about it. You keeping her, he asked, or just hiding her? Rose stepped forward before Clay could answer. I'm not hiding, she said. Her voice shook, but it held. I was hurt. She continued, not here, not by him. She looked at Clay, then back to the crowd. I came because I didn't have anywhere else. I stayed because he didn't look at me like I was broken. That landed. Not everyone liked it, but everyone heard it. Wade laughed sharp. You hear that? Oh, she's playing him. That was when Clay moved. Not fast, just enough. He stepped off the porch. You want to talk about playing, Clay said. Eyes steady. You can start with why. You came here with a knife. Wade stiffened. A few heads turned. Clay kept going. You didn't come to protect the town. You came because it made you feel small that someone said no to you. Silence pressed in. Wade lunged. He didn't get far. Clay caught him mid-step, fist driving into Wade's chest. And it hurt Clay more than he'd admit, but it bought him space. Not hard enough to kill, hard enough to stop. They hit the dirt together. Clay rolled, got up first, and stepped back. No extra punches, no show. Wade stayed down longer than he wanted to. A man from the crowd finally stepped between them. That's enough, he said. Clay nodded. It is. Clay agreed. The crowd began to break apart then. Not because they were convinced, because they were uncomfortable. They broke eye contact first. A few stared at their boots like the dust might explain them. And once the first man turned away, the rest followed like it was permission. One by one, they left. Some looking at Rose, some looking away. When it was done, only Clay and Rose remained on the porch. The quiet felt heavier than the noise. Rose let out a breath she'd been holding since the bell rang. I made it worse, she said. Clay shook his head. No, he replied. You made it honest. She looked at him. Really looked. You didn't have to do all this, she said. Clay leaned against the post. I did, he said. Because every man gets one moment where he decides who he is. She smiled faint, sad, grateful. They sat on the steps as the sun dipped low. No touching, just sharing space. I don't know what comes next, Rose said. Clay nodded. That's the part nobody ever does. A breeze moved through the yard. Rose glanced toward the road. They won't stop, she said. Clay smiled. Small. Certain. I know. She swallowed. And if they come back, Clay looked at her, then we stand again.
Remember this moment, subscribe and like the video so you don't miss what follows, and tell me, what do you think comes next?
She hesitated. Together, he met her eyes. Only if you want to. She didn't answer right away. But she didn't move away either. Night settled in. Somewhere in town, another bell rang. Short this time. Urgent. Clay stood. That's not for show, he said. Rose followed his gaze. What is it? He grabbed his jacket. That's the kind that means someone made a decision. Rose heard a horse far off on the road, then another, and Clay realized they weren't bringing torches tonight. They were bringing signed notices. Clay watched the road and pictured Booth's ink bleeding into the county ledger. The bell stopped ringing, but its echo stayed in the air. Clay and Rose did not rush toward town. They waited. That waiting mattered. Clay didn't step off the porch. He just stood with his hands loose at his sides, letting the road do the walking. Rose watched him like he was teaching her a new kind of courage, one that didn't need to move to be loud. 3 days passed. Those 3 days were not peace. They were the kind of quiet that makes a man listen to his own thoughts too loud. On the first night, someone rode by slow, not close enough to be seen, close enough for hooves to whisper in the dust. On the second day, Clay found fresh tobacco ends near the county line, ground into the dirt like a message. Rose noticed too. She started waking before dawn, sitting up on the cot, listening for boots, for laughter, for the scrape of a latch. Clay didn't tell her to relax. He just kept doing small things that made the ranch harder to take. He moved the spare hay bales away from the barn wall so no one could hide behind them. He kept the lantern lit a little later than usual, so the yard never went fully dark. And he talked, not about the past, but about work. Fence posts, water rights, cattle prices, normal talk. The kind that reminds a scared person that life can still be ordinary. The road stayed quiet, but the quiet felt like a trap. Some nights, Clay heard riders stop out on the county line, then turned back without coming in. 3 riders came first, not Wade, older, cleaner, men who liked paperwork more than fists. Clay watched from the porch. These aren't his, he said. Rose stood beside him, arms folded tight. Are they worse? Clay nodded once, sometimes. The riders stopped at the gate. One dismounted, boots polished, hat stiff. Mr. Clay Mercer, he said. Name's Harlan Booth. Clay didn't offer his hand. What do you want? He asked. Booth glanced at Rose. Just a glance. Enough. We're here to avoid trouble, Booth said. Clay smiled faint. That usually means trouble already picked aside. Booth cleared his throat. There have been complaints, he said, about what happened here. About the woman? Rose stiffened. Clay spoke before she could. She has a name, he said. Booth nodded. Rose, he said. Yes. About Rose. Booth reached into his coat and pulled out folded papers. He read them like scripture, disturbing the peace. He didn't look up once, like if he met Clay's eyes, the papers might turn to dust. Assault on respectable citizens, and keeping a woman of questionable character on your property. Clay laughed once. That's rich, he said. Booth stayed calm. We can make this easy, he said. She leaves tonight. Town settles down. Rose felt the ground tilt. Clay stepped closer to Booth. And if she doesn't? Clay asked. Booth looked at the ranch, at the barn, at the fields. Then things get expensive, he said. Fines, liens, eventually. No ranch. Rose looked at Clay. I won't do this to you, she said quietly. Clay didn't look at her. You're not doing anything, he said. Booth raised a hand. Think carefully, he said. You're 53. You've built this place your whole life. Clay finally looked at him. And you think I'll give it up because someone told me who I'm allowed to protect? Booth sighed. I think you'll choose yourself, he said. Clay shook his head. That's where you're wrong. Rose stepped forward. Clay, she said. I can go. He turned to her. No, he said. She swallowed. I've run my whole life. she said. I don't want to ruin yours. Clay's voice softened. You're not ruining anything, he said. You're reminding me why I built it. Booth folded the papers again. You've got until sundown, he said. The riders turned and left. The dust they kicked up hung low and mean. Rose sat on the steps, hands shaking. They're going to take everything, she said. Clay sat beside her. They can try, he said. She looked at him. You could still change your mind. Clay smiled. I already did, he said. A long time ago. I just didn't know it yet. Night came fast, too fast. Lights flickered in town. Too many. Too organized. Clay loaded the old shotgun. He hated needing it, but he hated burying good people more. Not because he wanted to fight, because he wanted to finish things standing. Rose watched him. You shouldn't do this, she said. Clay looked up. I'm not doing it alone, he said. She shook her head. I don't mean that. She said, I mean you shouldn't have to. He walked to her. You ever notice, he said, how the worst things happen when good people stay quiet? She nodded. I stayed quiet once, she said. It almost killed me. She learned to keep a blade close, not to win fights, just to buy one more minute to live. He rested a hand on the table, not touching her. Close enough. Then we won't be quiet, he said. Hooves sounded on the road. Not 3. More. Torches glowed in the dark. Rose's breath caught. Clay stepped onto the porch. Stay behind me, he said. She didn't. She stepped beside him. If this is the end, she said, I want them to see me. Clay glanced at her. Pride flickered through his worry. The crowd stopped short of the gate. Wade was there again. Face hard. Smile gone. Booth stood near him. Booth didn't look proud. He looked like a man trying to keep a crowd from turning into a lynch mob. If he wasn't there, the county would blame him when things went bad. This is your last chance, Booth called. Clay didn't shout back. No, he said. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Wade stepped forward. You think she's worth all this? Wade sneered. Clay answered without hesitation. Yes, that word did more damage than any punch. Someone threw a rock. It hit the fence. Another followed. Clay raised his voice then. That's enough, he said. Rose felt his arm brush hers. Steady, unmoving. A woman in the crowd spoke up. She didn't steal anything. She said, a man added, she didn't hurt anyone. Voices overlapped. Booth looked uneasy. Wade turned on the crowd. You're going to side with her. The woman crossed her arms. I'm siding with what's right, she said. The shift was small, but it was real. Booth saw it too. He raised both hands. This ends now, he said. Wade cursed. Clay stood tall. Rose felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Hope. Not loud, not certain, but alive. Booth looked at Clay. We'll talk tomorrow, he said. In daylight, the crowd didn't leave like forgiven people. They left like people who planned to come back with friends, not cheering, not angry, thinking. When it was over, Clay exhaled. Rose laughed quietly. I think, she said. We just survived. Clay nodded. Tonight, he said. She looked at him. And tomorrow, Clay met her eyes. Tomorrow, he said. We decide what this becomes. Rose looked out at the dark ranch, at the land that almost wasn't hers. Then she asked the question neither of them could avoid. If the town comes back with papers instead of fists, will standing together still be enough, or will love demand an even higher price? Morning came soft, not gentle, but honest. The ranch looked the same as it always had. Fence posts, dust, the slow breath of land that had seen worse than rumors, and men with torches. Clay stood on the porch with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. He had not slept much. Men who choose a side rarely do. Rose stepped out beside him, pulling her jacket tighter. The night had left its mark, but it had not broken her. They didn't come back, she said. Clay nodded. Not yet, he replied. They watched the road together. No crowd, no riders, just space. That was when Rose understood something. Rose kept looking for the next blow that didn't come. Clay just kept his eyes on the road, coffee cooling in his hand, like a man who'd learned that the first one to blink loses. They spent the morning working the ranch like it mattered, because it did. Rose reset the loose fence rail with a rock and a hammer, then checked the water line for cuts. Clay rode the south edge and counted tracks in the dust. Normal work, the kind that tells the land we are still here. Around midday, a wagon stopped at the edge of the property. Not officials, not Wade. A woman stepped down, middle-aged, eyes tired but kind. "I brought bread," she said, holding out a wrapped bundle and some coffee. Rose blinked. "For what?" she asked. The woman shrugged. "For courage," she said. "For last night." She did not stay long. She did not apologize, and she did not explain, but she left the bread. Then another came, and another, but not everyone softened. Some folks still crossed the street when Rose walked into town. Some still spat in the dust after she passed, not all at once, not loudly, just enough to matter. By afternoon, the ranch felt different. Not safe, but not alone. Clay leaned against the fence, watching Rose laugh softly at something small. The sound surprised him. "You know," he said, "this land never gave me hope before." Rose looked at him. "What did it give you?" she asked. "A job," he said. "A reason to get up." She smiled. "And now," he thought for a moment, "now it gives me a reason to stay." They sat on the steps as the sun lowered, the kind of quiet that feels earned. Rose rested her hands on her knees. "I don't know what I am to you," she said. "And I won't assume." Clay nodded. "I wouldn't ask you to," he said. She took a breath. "But I know this," she continued. "No one has ever stood for me like that before." Clay looked at his hands. "I didn't stand for you because you needed saving," he said. "I stood because it was right." She met his eyes. "That's why it mattered. They did not kiss. They did not promise anything. Some things grow better when they are not rushed. The town never apologized." It never had to, but it changed. Wade left not long after. Men like him always do when the crowd stops clapping. The paper's booth threatened never came. Not because the town found a conscience, because the county didn't want blood on its hands. Not because the law suddenly grew a spine. Because when the next dry week came, folks remembered whose troughs never ran empty. Mercer's ranch supplied water and beef when times got thin. And a town that runs good men off doesn't stay a town for long. Rose stayed, not because she was trapped, because she chose to. One evening, Clay walked her to the back fence with an old revolver and a tin can. He showed her how to stand, how to breathe, and how to stop shaking. She missed the can 3 times. On the 4th shot, it jumped and spun in the dust. Clay just nodded like that was enough for today. Not to start wars, just to end fear. She worked the land with Clay, not as a favor, not as a guest. As a partner in the days, and Clay changed too. He laughed more, listened better. He learned that strength does not always mean standing alone. Sometimes it means letting someone stand with you. Years later, people would tell the story wrong. They would say the town was outraged. They would say fists fixed everything, but you know better now. You know it was quieter than that. It was a man saying no when saying yes would have been easier. It was a woman choosing not to run when running had always kept her alive. It was the slow work of dignity. And here's the part that matters most. Every one of us faces a moment like that, not on a ranch, not with torches, but in a choice. Do you protect what is right when it costs you comfort? Do you stand beside someone when the world says look away? Do you believe that decency still has a place? If this story moved you even a little, take a second and let me know. Tap, like if you believe quiet courage still matters. Subscribe if you want more stories about people who choose character over fear. And tell me this, if you were Clay, would you still do it, knowing it might cost you your name, your land, and your peace? If you were Rose, would you stay, even when staying means learning to trust again? And if you were in that town, Would you speak up knowing silence is safer? Those answers say more about us than we like to admit. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your spine straight, and your heart brave.